so much time in the promised land. And I've said this before, with Jacob and his family, deception seems to just be the underlying tone of his entire life, and then going to even some of his sons. You know, the two, Levi and Simeon, they deceived, can't think of their names, but were not Shemaiah. Yeah, it was father and son that took Dinah and raped her. Shechem. And, you know, they deceive them. Oh, well, you've got to be circumcised. Then they go in, you know, wipe them out. Judah, of course, cheats his daughter-in-law, and she ends up deceiving him, and he has 2 more sons by her. So, can you imagine? Why would God use people like that? You know, deception and so forth. Just doesn't seem right, does it? God would only use the good people, right? So who does God use?
Everyone.
Whomever he wants. Good, bad, and the ugly. You know, he used lepers. Talking about ugly. I think about Samson, who, shall we say, followed his lust and got him in trouble, but God still used him. David, not only was an adulterer, but a murderer. You know, people say, oh, this is nothing but a bunch of stories. Well, if it's nothing but a bunch of stories, then they sure did write a bad storyline, didn't they? Why would they add heroes and just cut them off at the knees like it? Because it's all real. You can't make this stuff up. So, we are, Joseph has been revealed to his family. He's so excited. And he's sending for his father and the rest of his brother's families to come down to Egypt. And he's going to take care of them. 2 years into the famine, there's 5 more years to go. So, 46, verse 1. Yep, that's what I wrote. So Israel set out with all that he had, and he came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. God spoke to Israel in a vision of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob. Notice, I always get tickled with this. Spoke to Israel, and then what does God call him? Jacob, Jacob. And I heard a professor told me one time, when he's doing right, he's called Israel. When he's not, he's called Jacob. It's kind of like if you had a son, you know, Billy Bob. If he's doing good, you call him Billy. If not, you call him Billy Bob. Or maybe, you know, you get called first and second name. And if you get all 3, you know you're in big trouble, right? So God spoke to him, said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, here I am. He says, I am the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you a great nation there. And you see, he was in the promised land when he has this vision. God's saying, it's okay. It's okay. I have a plan. Did God tell him what his plan is? No. He's just saying, trust me. Verse 4, he says, I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will surely bring you up again, and Joseph will close your eyes. Then Jacob arose from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried their father Jacob and their little ones and their wives in the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. They took their livestock and their property which they had acquired in the land of Canaan and came to Egypt, Jacob and all his descendants with him, his sons, his grandsons with him, his daughters and his granddaughters, and all of his descendants he brought with him to Egypt. Now these are the names of the sons of Israel. Jacob and his sons went to Egypt. Now I'm not going to read all these names. I don't feel like getting my tongue tied around my eye teeth. But verse 9, sons of Reuben, he's the oldest. 10, the sons of Simeon, second oldest. Sons of Levi and the sons of Judah. And then you go down to verse 13, the sons of Issachar, and 14, the sons of Zebulun. And these, verse 15 tells us, these are the sons of Leah, whom she bore to Jacob in Paddan with his daughter Dinah. All his sons and daughters numbered 33. A lot. So then you get to the sons of Gad, and 17, the sons of Asher. And these, verse 18 says, are the son of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to his daughter Leah, and she bore to Jacob these 16 persons. So 33 and 16, we're up to 49. Then Jacob's wife, Rachel, verse 19, Joseph and Benjamin. Now Joseph, in the land of Egypt, were born Manasseh and Ephraim, his two sons, whom Asnath, the daughter of Potiphar, something along that, anyway, priest of On, born to him, and the sons of Benjamin, in verse 21. These, verse 22, are the sons of Rachel, whom were born to Jacob, 14 persons in all. And then you have the sons of Dan and the sons of Naphtali, and these are the sons of Bilhah, verse 25, whom Laban gave to his daughter Rachel, and she bore these to Jacob. There were 7 persons in all. All the persons belonging to Jacob who came to Egypt, his direct descendants, not including the wives of Jacob's sons, were 66 persons in all. And the sons of Joseph who were born to him in Egypt were 2. All the persons of the house of Jacob who came to Egypt were 70. So it's now, verse 28, he sent Judah before him to Joseph. Remember, Reuben messed up, Simeon and Levi messed up. Brings you down to Judah, the 4th born son to Jacob. And Jesus is of the tribe of Judah. Judah has taken now, you see, kind of a more prominent role in the family. I'll put it that way. So, 20, he sent Judah before him to Joseph to point out the way before him to Goshen, and they came to the land of Goshen. Joseph prepared his chariot and went up to Goshen to meet his father. As soon as he appeared before him, he fell on his neck and wept on his neck a long time. It's been over 20 years since the two saw one another. I can't imagine. It's been a little over 20 years since my father passed. Yeah, time flew, but I know where he's at. I can't go to him yet. But can you imagine this reunion of father and son? And let's not forget, Joseph was Jacob's favorite son. So it's just weeping on each other for a long time. It had to be a very, very emotional reunion. So verse 30, Israel said to Joseph, now let me die since I've seen your face, that you are still alive. Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, I will go up and tell Pharaoh, and will say to him, my brothers and my father's household who were in the land of Canaan have come to me. And the men are shepherds, for they have been keepers of livestock, and they have brought their flocks and their herds and all they have. It shall come about when Pharaoh calls you and says, what's your occupation? You shall say, your servants have been keepers of livestock from our youth, even until now, both we and our fathers, that you may live in the land of Goshen. In other words, you tell him this so you can live here. For every shepherd is loathsome to the Egyptians. Egyptians were the aristocrats of that time. But yet, where'd their clothing come from? If it was all made of flax, boy, that was some stiff stuff. They did have sheep and other animals, I would think like goats and so forth, that they would shear and make it from. But they stuck them off to the side, evidently, because they didn't want them around, especially the upper echelon of the Egyptians. There's the beach-bound girl. So verse 47, chapter 47, verse 1. Joseph went in and told Pharaoh and said, my father and my brothers and their flocks and their herds, all that they have come out of the land of Canaan. Behold, they are in the land of Goshen. He took 5 men from among his brothers and presented them to Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to his brothers, what's your occupation? So they said to Pharaoh, your servants are shepherds, both we and our fathers. They said to Pharaoh, we have come to sojourn in the land. There's no pasture for your servants' flocks, for the famine is severe in the land of Canaan. Now therefore, please let your servants live in the land of Goshen. They used their P's and Q's. Please. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, your father and your brothers have come. The land of Egypt is at your disposal. Settle your father and your brothers in the best of the land. Let them live in the land of Goshen. And if you know any capable men among them, then put them in charge of my livestock. Now remember, Goshen, I said, is on the eastern side of the Nile. It's any land supposedly near the Nile is very fertile because it floods regularly and it just keeps the water flowing. And they probably even had some irrigation at that point in time. Verse 7, Joseph brought his father Jacob and presented him to Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. That seems to me, I remember the first time, a little unusual. You're coming, can you imagine you meet the President of the United States, or a former one if you prefer, and you bless him? You say a blessing over him? Doesn't that seem out of the, like it should be kind of the other way around? Well, hold on. Jacob blesses Pharaoh. Verse 8, Pharaoh said to Jacob, how many years have you lived? So Jacob said to Pharaoh, the years of my sojourning are 130. Few and unpleasant have been the years of my life, nor have they attained the years of my fathers. My fathers lived during the days of their sojourning. So he's 130 years old. Joseph was, remember, 17, 30 years old when he's presented to Pharaoh. 9 years pass when, by this point, so he's 39. How old? If Jacob is 130, test your math skills. How old was Jacob when Joseph was born?
89, 90.
Anybody else will take a guess?
93.
I don't know how you get 93. I do math the old way, not the new way. So that would make that a 2, a 1, and 91. How many 91-year-old men do you know having children? And let's not forget, he's got Benjamin that's like 7, 8, 9, 10 years younger than Joseph. Who?
Martha's dead.
We don't want to hear that story. Yeah.
Let's forget I asked that. Jerry just messed it all up. All right, 130 years old. I maybe lose my place, Jerry. There it is. All right, Jacob. He was 130. It tells him, I'm 130 years old. Verse 10. Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Didn't we just read that? You know what it means when you read something twice, especially in that close of proximity?
You lost your voice.
Yup. That, or double the emphasis. It's like you read in the New Testament, it's verily, verily, or truly, truly. it's double the emphasis. You know, verily, verily, truly, truly, same thing, different translation. Basically is where Jesus is saying this is very important. Pay attention. So here, the writer of Genesis wants us to know this is important. Jacob, who only spent a minimum amount of time in the promised land, is blessing Pharaoh. But let's not forget, if you go back into Genesis 12:3, when God comes to Abraham, I think it might be when he changes his name to Abraham, and he gives him a promise. Abraham, I will bless those who bless you. You will be a blessing to the world. So, Jacob is doing what God told his grandfather. He's blessing another country, another person, because Pharaoh, allowing him to live in Goshen, taking care, is blessing Jacob and his possessions. Does God keep his word? Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Even when it doesn't jump out at us, it's there. It's there. So, verse 11, Joseph settled his father and his brothers and gave them possession in the land of Egypt, and the best of the land, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had ordered. Joseph provided his father and his brothers and all his father's household with food according to their little ones. Room service was now available. It seems like, of course, it's still the famine, so they couldn't plant anything, they couldn't grow anything, couldn't go anywhere else to buy anything. But Joseph provided, okay? As we keep reading, keep those two words in mind. Joseph provides. So now, verse 13, there is no food in all the land because the famine was so very severe. So the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished because of the famine. Joseph gathered all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the grain which they bought, and Joseph brought the money to Pharaoh's house. So you couldn't grow anything, so you go to Joseph. I need a pound of grain so I can feed my family. That'd be $10 or whatever. Something along that line. That's what's taking place. Verse 15. When the money was all spent in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, give us food. Why should we die in your presence? For all our money's gone. All right, so Pharaoh essentially has all the money that is in the land of Canaan and Egypt. No more to be found. No. 16. Joseph said, well, give up your livestock and I will give you food for your livestock since your money is gone. So now it's, you don't have any money. All right, give me whatever your livestock is. Even trade. So they brought their livestock to Joseph. Joseph gave them food in exchange for the horses and the flocks and the herds and the donkeys, and he fed them with food in exchange for all the livestock that year. Famine's not over yet. When that year had ended, they came to him the next year and said, we will not hide from my Lord that our money is all spent and the cattle are my Lord's. There's nothing left for my Lord except our bodies and our lands. Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for food, and we and our land will be slaves to Pharaoh. So give us seed that we may live and not die, and that the land may not be desolate. So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. Every Egyptian sold his field because the famine was severe upon them. Thus the land became Pharaoh's. So just make sure you got it. First, all the money. Then the livestock. Now all the land. Does that seem fair? Yeah, but the people are alive. go back to FDR. Trying to remember my history. After World War II. Oh, I can't think of what he called it, but they started a lot of building, a lot of jobs for people who were out of work and put them to work. He didn't dig down into his pockets and say, here, just take it. That's what Joseph was done. He's not saying, we're not just going to give it to you. I don't think he did the people wrong. He kept them alive. But this is not a freebie. Because if you give people free stuff after a while, a few years, what happens? Right? Yeah. Well, you did it before. Why don't you do it again? Over and over and over. It becomes the mindset. Joseph, remember, was a smart man. Verse 21, as for the people, he removed them from the cities, from the one end of Egypt's border to the other. Only the land of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had an allotment from Pharaoh, and they lived off the allotment which Pharaoh gave them. Therefore, they didn't sell their land. They didn't have to. Makes me feel good. Then Joseph said to the people, behold, I have today bought you and your land for Pharaoh. Now, here's seed for you, and you may sow the land. At the harvest, you shall give a fifth to Pharaoh. 4/5 shall be your own seed of the field, and for your food, and those of your household as food for your little ones. So, Joseph, God's word says we're supposed to give God 10%. How much is Joseph asking for? Yeah. He wants 20%. Does that seem fair? I can imagine all the complaining if that's what God was asking for all of us to do, give 20%. They get 4/5. Hard enough time getting people to give 1/10, isn't it? Yes. All right. But he's going to give them back seed so they can plant, so they can feed themselves on Pharaoh's land and take care of Pharaoh's animals. So they said, verse 25, you have saved our lives. Let us find favor in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's slaves. Joseph made it a statute concerning the land of Egypt, valid to this day, that Pharaoh should have the fifth. Only the land of the priests should not become Pharaoh's. Now Israel lived in the land of Egypt in Goshen, and they acquired the property in it, and were fruitful, and became very numerous. I'm going to stop there because the last part of this, to me, fits in very well with chapter 48. So, questions, comments, what do you think about Joseph taking all that property and everything from everybody?
It's like you said, he kept them alive.
He kept them alive.
Did his brothers look after all that livestock?
Don't know, but that's the point I missed. Did the brothers have to take and give up their livestock? Joseph, what did he do?
Provided.
He provided. You've heard of the word favoritism, right? He took care of his family. What God wants us to do is take care of our family. But you can read this and say, man, that's unfair. He should have only taken 10%, not 20%. Here's my question. Some people knew what was going to happen during the 7 years of feast. How come they didn't save up enough money and feed to take care of their own selves?
They didn't believe.
Probably.
I remember tenant farmers.
Mm-hmm.
That the landowner provided, say, fertilizer and seed to the people that were tenants.
Right. They did all the work and only got a smidgen of the profits. And if it was a bad year, too bad.
Do you know how much?
Tenants paid the landowner for fifth.
A fifth.
Was it a fifth?
Yeah.
Egypt would have been so lucky. You know, God had a plan when he sent Joseph down there. He knew what was coming, even when Joseph was 17. He knew, you know, you think about, and I've asked this, why did Joseph do this? Why did he have to go through that? He was learning the entire way. It made him the man he was. You know, he could have said, "Oh, let's just feed them," and they would have been out of food probably within the first 2 years, give or take. Or, as I said, okay, the famine's over, go back and plant. Oh no, that's too much work. You got to give us some grain. You know, my ox is a little on the skinny side. Could you purchase us a new one? You know, it's just, he was going to make them work more or less to receive the food. I think if there was somebody who's like, I don't have any more livestock, I only got this small parcel of land, but you know, there's 10 of us in my family, I don't think he'd say, sorry. I'm sure he fed them. He did that not so much to let Pharaoh control everything, I think he already did, but as a means of the people have to work. Anybody else? Questions?
Unlike what's happening today.
Yes, ma'am. I didn't want to say that because I'm online, but yes, unlike what's happening. I won't say your name.